Acha, aracha. Hey, what's going on, man? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Hey, don't ask me. Don't ask me. Why. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I don't have the answers. Hey, what's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn, and as you know, I react to every episode I watch of Last Chance U basketball. Last Chance U is one of my favorite series ever. I love documentaries. I love sports, so this is just hitting me on so many different levels. But this episode was awesome, man. I want to just talk about the obvious stuff. I don't want to waste your time. First off, they start off on a low note because they go home after a nice slacking from episode 3, and it causes Coach Mosley to do something that I can certainly relate to. As a coach myself, I'm gonna tell you exactly what used to happen. I had those players that were very flashy. They look good on paper. They look good in my lineup. They made us look good as a team. But then I would look at my bench from time to time, and all I see is dogs. And a lot of times those dogs was crying because they wanted to get in the game. But I had my guys. Every coach has their guys. But we the season that I'm always referencing, we went 9-1 that season, and I took the basketball team to the playoffs for like the first time in forever. Um, and we won the first round, got to the second round, and lost by maybe 5 points. And a lot of guys was upset because they didn't have a chance or say so in that loss. And I always think to that game, and I wonder to myself, could I've done more? Is there anything that I could have done? And the answer is yes. I could have went man to man instead of playing that 2-3 zone. I could have brought those dogs off my bench. We were winning the first half. The first half in the game that I'm referencing, we were up big in the first half. We might have been up 9 points, and we thought we had the game won. Went into the second half, and those guys started to just come back. They was hitting threes. The scorekeeper was cheating, all kind of weird stuff, and we lost that game. And I always think back to that game. Is this something I could have done more? Should I have put them dogs in the lineup? Would that have changed everything? And watching this episode really answered a lot of my questions, because when if you never played basketball professionally or coached basketball, you probably don't get it. But if for those who have played, some games just stick with you. Some seasons stick with you more than others. And I'm telling you, the season I'm referencing is going to be a season I'm going to think about for probably my entire life. And I'm so glad I was watching this episode because it just brought back that season for me. We were doing something very, very big. A lot of people didn't want me to coach because they said I didn't have experience. This was my second year coaching, but the evidence was the evidence. I brought these guys to the playoffs, and for nobody, the guy that was there before me hadn't done that. So I was doing something that a lot of people didn't think I could do, and just watching this episode brought all those feelings and those thoughts back. And he did something that I was very happy to see him do. He gave some other guys a shot. All right, some of the highlights of this episode is this guy right here. Okay, Damani. I'm not sure if you can see that, but this guy is very inspirational. I love seeing that he plays the other side of the ball, the unpretty side of the ball. Everybody looks at the shots, the rebounds, the crossovers, the dribbles, but defense. Those guys who hunker down, they sit in that seat and they play defense. Those are the guys that I most relate to. I love playing basketball, and I can score here and there, but when it comes to defense, that's where I really hone in my skill and I really show what I'm about. I show my grit. I show my dog. And I really appreciated watching him this entire episode. Just I wrote him off in the first episode. The first episode, after hearing about his cardiac and heart situation, I just wrote him off. I said, okay, he's not going to even be in the season. He's not going to get any moments in this season where I'm going to care about. But that's exactly what happened. This episode showed me that he's a dog, man, and I really related to him. Coach Mosley put in two guys, in fact. All right, so Damani is one of the guys, and the second guy that is very important to note is this guy right here. Okay, Josh Phillips. I was so surprised that Coach went to the dogs. He also put this guy in here as well. Okay, Corey Cofield. So three dogs got a chance to play this time around. Corey, Josh, and Damani. And I want to start off with Damani. First off, defensive threat. He's like all in your grill. I hate playing against guys like that. That's how I really appreciate. That's why I really appreciate Damani. Josh is a whole different monster. First off, if you don't know, if you haven't been watching, Josh has autism, and if you know me personally, I have a lot, in common with that. My daughter, my oldest daughter, has autism, and she had her autism is really bad, so just watching Josh being able to function and talk and play, that was pretty cool to see that. And just hearing his perspective kind of helps me understand my own daughter, because one thing about it is, even though it's my child, I don't understand her. Like, there's no manual to dealing with a child with autism. So just hearing how he perceives things actually was very insightful. And I wish I knew him or someone like him personally that has autism, but can also speak and understand and almost kind of fit in with everybody else. Because I was like, hey, can you just talk to my daughter? Can you speak your little language and just tell me what she talking about or what she thinking about? Because I can't figure it out. But no, sensory overload was a big thing. But nevertheless, I love how strong he plays. He's very, very rough and rigid. And it's like he's the kind of player that if you go into the game, you just rub his arm, you're gonna get a blister. Like, he's so like thorny. And he's hitting you with elbows, he's hitting you with shoulders, you're getting hit with hips. That kind of player is terrible to play against because you're gonna get hurt. He's hard, he's like hitting against solid steel. And he plays like that. And I did not know that Josh could jump out the building the way that I saw him jump out of the building in this episode. This guy has springs, and I'm talking about he has explosive jumping ability. He doesn't hang in the air like Jordan necessarily. He doesn't like. It's like he just when he jumps, it's like he's jumping off of a trampoline. He bounces off the ground, and he slams with such tenacity. And he reminded me of like a young Sean Kemp almost. Just the way he slams, like when you mix that springing ability with that power, it's just a beautiful sight. It was poetry in motion. And of course, I think his name here is what's his name here? Corey Cofield. He's just an all-around player. So coach goes to the dogs. He puts those pretty players on the bench. I'm sorry, Brian. Brian goes to the bench. Shamar, those kind of players, just they look good on this. They look good on the lineup. They look good. They say the right things, but what have you, and they just don't get it done though. And like I said, I've seen players like that. And I have to applaud Coach Mosley for making that decision, because a lot of times you want to look good more than you want to win. A lot of times, and a lot of times pulling your or the guys that you are favorable over, or the guys you've grown to like, pulling them out the game and putting those dogs in is a difficult decision. And Coach Mosley alluded to it several times. He said we might not score, and that's the problem. Those gaudy, those players with all those skills and abilities, they score. They don't play, and that scoring comes at the deficit of something else like defense. But he brought those dogs in, and what was very surprising to see is that they were able to score. Okay, so that's what happens. Now, this episode really focuses on this new matchup with Fresno. And if you don't know, at the ELAC college, they're looking for teams to play. And at the JUCO level, you don't get into the playoffs unless you've beat some quality teams. Yes, you can beat 30 teams, but if they're not quality teams, then the people who decide who plays in the JUCO playoffs are going to look at it like, hey, you just beat some guys who are below 500. So, they were actively looking for colleges to play against, in quality colleges. And I think Coach Mosley points out that he looks at the top 10 ranking and he just starts from the top and just keep going down, and he's calling everybody that they're desperate for a quality game. And this episode also highlights Coach Rob, and I really, really, even more so than before, because I always thought highly of Coach Rob, because it's very difficult to be an assistant coach for many reasons. A lot of times you feel like you're more qualified than that other guy. And then also there's the humbling factor. Can you humble yourself to come second fiddle to somebody who you might think you can outcoach in a do or die situation? But Coach Rob is so humble. He is the quintessential assistant. He does everything that allows Coach Mosley to do what he needs to do in terms of coaching. Coach Rob is the perfect example of an assistant, not just an assistant coach, but an assistant, someone who has the capability to be the head, but understands his role enough to scale down his own abilities and understandings in order to push up the person that's actually in charge. And watching him in action was beautiful. It was awesome. He's checking grades. He's doing all the things that allows Coach Mosley to actually focus on the X's and O's. So, Coach Rob got a nice little spotlight on in this episode, and I really appreciated seeing that. But they're looking for the best games, and they called it Game Hunters, obviously, the episode itself. And they stumble upon Fresno. Now, Fresno was a very interesting matchup for them because Fresno beat San Francisco. And if you don't know, San Francisco beat ELAC by 30 this season that I'm talking about. And that's a big loss. So naturally, you're thinking to yourself, if Fresno beat San Francisco and San Francisco beat ELAC by 30, then it's pretty obvious what's going to happen here. This is a suicide mission. Yeah, you're looking for games and quality games, but do you really want to go against a team that beat a team that beat the team that beat you by 30? Is that really what you want? And once they actually got that, that offer, or rather when they made that call and they accepted, they start to think about it like, wait, we wanted a tough game, but is this the game that we actually wanted? And I love seeing that dynamic. And also, we heard from Coach Rob, who stated that when they made the call to Fresno and said, "Hey, do you guys want to accept this game?" They was like, "Hey, yeah, we want to get." They was very like brash about it, and I know why is because they probably saw the film of ELAC in San Francisco, and they like, if we can beat San Francisco, then we definitely can dog out ELAC. But I think what happened is what happened was, you know, every loss as a basketball team and the basketball coach, every time you lose a game, you learn more than you do when you win a game. And losing by 30, you're bound to be a different team. And I think that might have been what Fresno overlooked. Like, hey, we're not going against a team that battled San Francisco. In fact, we should expect a much tougher out because of all the things they learned about themselves in that game. The more you know about yourself, the better you'll be and the better you'll perform on the court. So I think that's what happened. Um, I love the turnaround because I was very critical of Coach Mosley in my third episode reaction because I saw a coach that was defeated and I saw a coach who resorted to screaming and yelling rather than reflection. And I thought that this could only go one of two ways. Either this is going to go left or it's going to go right. He's going to either improve and reflect upon himself and realize that he's also a part of the problem, or he's gonna just tumble down the mountain and continue to blame everybody else for his own team's misfortunes. And thankfully, he did some reflection, and this is what caused him to pull people from the starting lineup and swap them. I do want to also talk about Brian. Brian in this Fresno game was highly disappointing, and I understand why a lot of people might disagree with me on that point because first off, even Coach Rob himself points out that Brian had a good game against Fresno. He just didn't make the shots. Well, that's kind of the point. That's why I'm saying that he didn't have a good game. No one cares, especially at the professional level. And I would argue that JUCO is professional basketball. You might disagree there, but I would argue that it is professional. I think from college on up, whether it's junior college or what have you, it's professional basketball. You might not be getting paid, but that's a problem with the system, not necessarily, a indication that JUCO basketball is not professional. The system should be paying you guys. That's beyond the point. But I thought that a guy his size, a guy, and you know what? It's not even about his size. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about the way that he carries himself. Brian carries himself as if he can't make a mistake. You always hear him upset and cursing on the sidelines anytime he's pulled out. But then he misses shots that's like 2 inches from the basket. And then he proceeds to smack his hands like, I knew I should have got that. And those are the kind of players I dislike the most. Now, I like Brian as a person. For example, if Brian was actually watching this and he's not, but if he was, he might get upset with what I'm saying. And I want to be clear in saying I like Brian as a player and I have great expectations, but it's those expectations that make me upset with his gameplay because I know that if his mind was right, he would be the dominant force that I perceive him to be. I perceive him to be like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar caliber player, 6 championship kind of player. But I guess he's just not there yet, and it's frustrating, because he missed a lot of shots and he got pulled out. And thankfully, because that allowed Josh to show what he's made out of. I do want to also highlight one more player, and I did not think that I would be talking about this guy, but this guy right here, Mr. DC. All right, he is another dog that coach pulled off the bench and put into the game. And let me just tell you, this guy is talented. I almost made this entire reaction about DC because We know he had a lot of expectations placed on him because his father's in the NBA. But man, this guy is impressive, dude. You can tell he is the embodiment of this generation of basketball players. They all play 2K. They all care about their 2K ratings, their my player ratings, and they all play flashy. None of them play defense, really. They all care about their social media follower numbers. That's what kind of generation we're in right now. And this guy here is the embodiment of that generation. And just watching him play and finally get some playing time because coach put those dogs in, it was a beautiful sight to watch. And dare I say, he lived up to the hype. I think against Fresno, they showed a clip where he hit two threes, two 3-pointers back to back. And that was beautiful. It was beautiful to see. I love his bounciness. He's very springy. He moves very well. He's very agile, and you can certainly see his pedigree, his NBA pedigree, in action as he played. So, though I didn't spend a lot of time in this reaction talking about DC, he's actually one of the bigger surprises this episode for me personally, because I knew that Josh and DC would get a moment in this season as a whole. I just didn't know when and how it would impact my understanding of what was going on. But seeing DC finally let off the leash, because he'd been sitting on the bench pouting the entire time I've been watching this, and to see him actually get some PT and ball out. And I know that the season is edited and they're not showing you all his misses and stuff like that. But what they did show was extremely impressive. Now, for me, a big question is, how does coach go forward? Like after beating Fresno, and by the way, they do go against Fresno, and it's not even close. I think they're up by, I want to say, 6 points at the end of the first half, and by the time the game is over, they win by, I want to say, 9 points. So this was definitely one sided, and they beat the brakes off Fresno. Fresno was not prepared for what they experienced against ELAC. ELAC certainly showed up, and they showed a toughness that I had not seen all season. And I think the injection of the dogs, right? The dogs, Josh, Corey, DC, those kind of guys. The injection of those kind of guys, Damani, that allowed this team to really exude that toughness that was always there. They are a huge team. And now if I'm a coach and I'm bringing my team in to play against ELAC, I'm looking at their size and stature. And I think the first 3 episodes, their size and stature wasn't a factor. This is the first episode where I looked and said, these guys are huge and they're playing huge. People like Josh, I hate playing against guys like that. You're in the paint with those guys, you're trying to box them out and they don't move. And while you're trying to move them, you feel like you're moving or trying to move a steel door that's like bolted to the ground. And they're very, very strong, right? And he's autistic, so like he sees things in very narrow ways. I have to get this rebound, and there's nothing stopping me from getting this rebound. And a couple of times this episode, you heard people say about Josh that you know he wants to do one thing very well, basically, and or once he gets it, he got it. He wants to be the best at it, and that's kind of what's been true, or what my experience has been with when it comes to autistic children is, they might not be good at everything, but that one thing that they are good at, they're very, very, very good at, and I saw that. But yeah, they absolutely punched Fresno in the face, and I don't know. Like I said, I haven't looked at any spoilers. I'm literally going episode by episode as I do my reactions. I'm not like cheating and trying to see what's going on at the end, watching trailers or nothing. I'm watching everything as it is. So I don't know what happens from here. And this season is old, so people already know, but I think that they have the potential to go far if they bottle what they did tonight. And I like what coach did. He didn't do a lot of yelling. He didn't do a lot of screaming. He just said, you guys know, like, what more can be said? If I gotta scream at you at this point, then you don't want to be a basketball player. And I think that's kind of what makes these guys pick up the slack. Because when the coach is screaming and yelling, a lot of times it shows like you're not confident in your team. And when you do when you be quiet, it's a great juxtaposition, and it forces the team to say, yo, we got to put this on our own shoulders. We can't expect the coach to win it for us, the crowd to win it for us. We got to win ourselves. And I saw that tonight. And good job to Eli, man. That's all I got. But I look forward to seeing episode 5. Man, I'm not sure. I'm a little nervous. I feel like this was the peak. This is the best I've seen this team. and I only see it going down from here. As bad as that sound. By the end of this episode, they're 13-4, which is a very, very respectable record. And I I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, you gotta give your main man a like or something like that. And I'll be back with another one. But with that being said, peace. You know what I mean? Cheers.